So it's time to begin our Williamson County Growth Plan Coordinating Committee update. I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County Mayor. Sitting up front in these four tables are the different committee members throughout the county. If you have not signed up on the table on my far right, I think there's some Sprite and Coke bottles. There's a sign-up sheet. If you'd like to speak, please feel free to sign up on that sheet at this time. While we're waiting on the last couple of people to sign up on that, our agenda, just roughly today, we'll be approving the minutes from November, which is the last time we had a meeting. And then we'll be having a brief presentation on the statutory requirements and standards by Christie. Then we'll have a brief recounting of the judicial actions. Greg Dale will handle that. And then we'll have a call for the adoption of the revised plan and any explanations for those plans that come out. All right. Mike, would you bring me up that sheet? So, as we have done in the past, for you that have attended these meetings, we have 7 people that are signed up to speak today. We have a total of 30 minutes. So you will have about 4 minutes. Is that right? Yeah. 4 times 7 is 28. And so you'll have 4 minutes in which to speak and address your concerns. As we have done in the past, I'll call your names off and then we'll kind of stack the people over here as they come up. Mr. Hafner, I see you're waiting in line, so go ahead and make your way up here. Charlie, when you come up, please identify yourself and the town that you're representing or the area. And you will have 4 minutes in which to speak. I'll put the clock on you. I'll kind of wind you down with 30 seconds or better. So first of all, we have Charlie Hafner Jr. And following him will be Kathy Green.
Well, thank y'all for coming back out here. I don't know of anything else I can say. We've all been through this already about 4 times. I just respectfully request that you deny Spring Hill the right to come over and take us. I appreciate your time, your effort, and bid you a fond adieu.
Kathy Green. And following Kathy is John Lee. Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Green. We live on Bethesda Road. We have a multi-generational farm on Harpeth-Painesville Road. And I appear before you today for what I pray is the last time. So I first want to express a conditional thank you to Thompson Station, conditional on the fact that I assume you guys are going to present the same map that we've all talked about and stuff, and I do appreciate the fact that you guys listen to the citizens. I can't say the same for Spring Hill, unfortunately. They seem to have just doubled down and not really cared what any of us had to say. There are a lot of problems in our southern end of the county. We don't have roads. Spring Hill is running low on water. Is it not? It's not working. Then it worked. It doesn't, so it's going in and out. Okay.
Just hold it.
Okay. So, Spring Hill, I really wish you guys would work with us some, like Thompson Station has. The roads are overburdened, as people who tried to get to work last week knew that it took them 2 hours. They don't have water, enough water for what they have. They're getting ready to raise the citizens' water rates because they have to build new facilities that they don't have the money for. And I know that they're counting on the new growth to pay for the miscalculations in the growth in the past, which that's been going on for a long time. That's not necessarily on this board, but that to me is almost like a Ponzi scheme. You're using new money to pay for the old stuff, your shortfalls. And there are other things you could do, but we just wish that you guys would listen to us some instead of dismissing us and being insulting and insisting that we don't know what we're talking about, like the airport that you guys all told us was wrong, and then the elected officials did confirm that you do have plans for that. So we just hope that you'll listen to us. I don't have a lot of hope since y'all replaced the mayor whenever he expressed an interest in at least listening to the citizens. So, we just hope you don't ruin the rest of what we have.
Thank you, Ms. Green. John Lee, and then following John is Dwayne Perry.
Thank you. I'd like to thank this board for letting us speak again. I'm sorry y'all have to go through another meeting, but y'all seem to be enjoying it. Just to give you a little information about this little area of paradise where I live. 3 families own, well, it used to be a third. Now that Spring Hill's added more acreage, it's a little less than a third. But the Lees, the Hafners, and the Thompson family have been there multiple generations. And that's just 3 families. The majority of what's there are people that have moved there recently and are in 5 to 100 acre tracts, none of which, I would say is prime development property. Only 15% of it's owned by developers to bring the growth I think that Spring Hill is wanting. I just beg that this board will look at what is there now, look at the poorly conceived plans that Spring Hill has for that area. Part of the plan has an innovation center going on my farm. The farm's in a land trust, so that's not going to happen. That just is an example of one of the issues with what they call growth. They say, oh, we're going to keep it rural, but their 2040 plan has it very densely developed. And here there's a different frame of reference. The way I look at it, we're pretty well developed now. That they think that June Lake is agricultural rural area, and if any of y'all drive down Buckner Lane, they are putting a lot of people there that they don't have the water for, the county doesn't have the schools for, the state, county, and city don't have the roads for. So please keep us in the Spring Hill urban growth area, in the Williamson County urban growth area where we've been the last 20 plus years. Because I'll give you a good example. They have added, from what was presented to this board most recently, area on the east side. They repeatedly said they weren't interested in the east side of Lewisburg Pike. They've added that area, and I think the reason the landowner wants it is the county would not let them do what they wanted to do in that area. So they said, Spring Hill, will you eventually annex us so we can do what we want to do? So please vote against Spring Hill's expansion anywhere on the east side of I-65. Thank you.
Next up is Dwayne Perry. Following Dwayne Perry will be Kate Bushman. Dwayne.
Thank you, Rogers. I appreciate your service on this committee and trying to coordinate the land planning. I go back a long ways in Williamson County, back when before Saturn was announced and all that, and was part of some of the land planning that went on to try to figure out what to do with farmland. I live on Bird Lane in the Bethesda community, and I back up to some of that property that John Lee mentioned that is being considered on the east side of Highway 431. That property is part of the tract that was proposed to put a very controversial thing, a gun club there a few years ago. And we were very thankful for the owner of the property at that time who pulled the plug on that with dozens and dozens of houses within a few 100 feet of that property. We didn't see how that would have fit there. And we don't understand how this proposed zoning from Spring Hill would fit now. We just have been very happy, I guess, with the way Williamson County has tried to do their zoning and planning in rural areas and try to keep the integrity of that property where people enjoy the beautiful county that we're in a little bit. Nothing like it was decades ago, but we can hardly imagine coming in there and building the kinds of things that are possibilities under the zoning that is proposed for that tract of land on the east side of Highway 431. I know there are dozens of people represented back there with those yellow shirts that are against their property being included in this zoning that Spring Hill's proposing, and either they join, some of that, or they own property themselves. And again, I want to thank you for your service and just ask you to help us stay in the Williamson County area as part of the zoning thing.
Okay, following Ms. Bushman will be Adam Melcher.
Hi, thanks. I'm Kate Bushman. I live on Ladd Road in Franklin. First, I want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak and your service to the county. We've all made the point. The area is beautiful. It's a jewel. If we nibble away at it, eventually it isn't the jewel that people want to come to anymore, and people will leave. It's a slippery slope. I just want to give a unique perspective because I live abutting the Reed's Vale project, which is going on now, a 4-year process of development. It's only 255 homes going up there, but it has been amazing, and I encourage, not good, amazing. I encourage you to drive down Ladd Road if you're in that area, because it's really demonstrative of what the development does. It has flattened that land. We used to, there's no more rolling landscape. This started 18 months ago with blasting and jackhammering. They run before dawn till after dark. They run under spotlights. I'm in my house, I can hear it. The blasting causes our house to shake, my animals to be frightened. There's dirt all over our roads. There's boulders that drop off the dump trucks. There are hundreds, and I am not exaggerating, hundreds of dump trucks up and down our road every day. Children don't play on our street anymore. There's dirt, there are clouds of dirt up in the air, and it falls down onto our houses, our cars, our mailboxes. I'm just saying that we have to, and when we look, you look out, it's just not the beautiful thing that we're all so proud of this area about. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bushman. Next is Adam Melcher, and then that following will be James Sadler.
My name's Adam Melcher. I reside in the Harpeth Woods subdivision. It's been a little bit since the last time we've all gathered here, and I wish to thank this committee for giving me the opportunity to speak today. During the first 6 months of our UGB journey, many county residents, along with many of these committee members, have experienced a great deal of anger, hopelessness, and frustration, to say the least. To say it was a learning experience for all of us would be a serious understatement. After all, what can we expect when decisions are being made that affect our homes and neighborhoods by outside entities that don't represent us? During the last 6 months, however, many of us who were in Thompson Station's proposed urban growth boundary, along with Mayor Stover and his staff, have helped turn some of those feelings into respect and hope, as we have worked together by allowing those who wish to be removed from their proposed plan, and also those who wish to be included to do so. Many unincorporated county residents live in the county on purpose, away from urban sprawl and everything else that it brings. So when our homes and neighborhoods become threatened, this committee then sees hundreds of yellow shirts on whatever Tuesday morning they need to attend. The lower attendance today is a tribute to the work that's been done by Thompson Station. Quite simply, residents don't take off work and rally their neighbors when they feel respected and listened to. I wish this was the happy end of the story, but all of us in this room know it's not, as there is another municipality that has decided to take a different route these past 6 months. Spring Hill has not only rejected the proposed interlocal agreement, but they've also increased the size of their proposed urban growth boundaries. By not granting the same rights to those who wish to be removed as those who don't, they are effectively steamrolling all of the affected county residents in Spring Hill's new proposed urban growth boundary. The exact opposite approach that Thompson Station decided to take. Under the current state law, as crazy as it sounds, none of the 65,000 unincorporated county residents have a vote in the decisions that a neighboring municipality can make about our homes and neighborhoods. Years ago, when the state of Tennessee decided that the municipal level knew what was best for its citizens, I promise you this was not the scenario it envisioned. When you're able to make decisions over land that you do not own and people who have no right to vote, you have a moral and ethical responsibility as a good human being to work together with your neighbors, like Thompson Station has done. Spring Hill, you have a chance to change the narrative like Thompson Station. Please respect the wishes of your unincorporated neighbors and not continue down your current path, which, as the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So for those who support the rejection of Spring Hill's new plan, please stand up and show your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melton. Next, and the final person to speak is Jane Sadler. Jane?
Good afternoon, and we do appreciate the fact that you are allowing us to speak and have some say in what happens with our county. I'd like to thank the town of Thompson Station for listening to the concerns of the citizens and allowing those who do not wish to be in the UGB to be removed. I wish the city of Spring Hill would do the same, but it appears they only care about grabbing land. What I'd like to know is, what have they promised developers? And more importantly, what have the developers promised them? We cannot allow them to continue to grab land. They've proven time and time again they are not good stewards of the land. Currently, they want to pull even more water out of the Duck River. And for those of you who may not have read the article, the Duck River is the third most endangered river in the country. Third most endangered. We cannot allow them to continue to pull water out of there. We have to think also that as they're going in and bulldozing the land, changing the topography of the land, you change the runoff. And what does that mean? Land is a sponge. The land holds water. If there's no water held anywhere, there's no water to be taken back up in the sky. As we all learned in elementary school, you have to recycle the water from the ground. So if we lose that, we're gonna start encountering more drought situations. They're doing nothing about infrastructure. We have nothing being touched in our thing. Currently, 31 won't be touched for 10 years. And there are no plans for 431. And please don't fool yourself into thinking that the new Buckner interchange will help at all. It's merely gonna shuffle traffic in different areas. The people who will be living in the Spring Hill, June Lake, and all of these different subdivisions that are coming along, they are still gonna be working in Franklin, Brentwood, Nashville. They will still be taking the 65 corridor south, and they will still run into the bottleneck that you hit at 65 and 840. That's 4 lanes down to 2. Do you want your first responders sitting on 31, 431, or 65 trying to reach you? We have to remember, it's 4 minutes without oxygen is detrimental. For a stroke, you have a golden hour to get treatment, and the average house is fully engulfed in 15 to 20 minutes. Do you want that to be your home because the first responders are sitting on 31 or sitting at Lewisburg Pike and 840 and they can't make it down the ramp to get to your home? Do you want your children at home where someone is breaking into the house and fire and police cannot get to them because of all the traffic in this area? We need to think of our infrastructure. We need to plan our infrastructure before we allow any more development. We need to stop the land grab. We need to start planning more effectively and more efficiently. Until then, we need to stop everything that we've got. Thank you.
So that concludes our public comments section that we had people to sign up today. Next order of business for the committee is to approve the minutes from the November the 21st, 2023 minutes, 2023 year. I'll entertain a motion. Those were sent out to you under separate cover. Thank you. Do I have a second? Second, Lisa. Any corrections on the minutes that need to be noted? If not, ready to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record reflect it passed unanimously. At this time, we're going to call upon Christy Ransom to come up and give us a brief. I got the order on it.
No, you're right.
All right, Christy's going to come up and go through the brief presentation on the statutory standards that we have.
I didn't know who was advancing the slide. Good afternoon. I'm going to be very brief. I don't know if you can hear me on this one. Okay. I understand. That's why I'm getting a microphone. So I'm just going to briefly go through the statutory standards. As you all know, the municipalities, your attorneys, and I and Jeff mostly have been also meeting regularly in addition to the planners meeting regularly. And so at our last meeting, we just thought it was important to highlight once again what the statutory standards are that this plan will be judged by in the event it is judged and when the Local Government Planning Advisory Committee takes a look at it. The committee members have all received a handout that has this. It also has the standards related to the planned growth areas and the rural areas. I'm only going to spend a brief amount of time on this because at this point in the process, only the urban growth boundaries are the areas that are under discussion. So it's not that the other two aren't important. But just very briefly, this is the standard for what the urban growth boundaries of a municipality shall include and what it shall do. In this case, we've looked at more of a 5-year growth because we have been discussing revisiting this in 5 years so rather than the 20, although I know that when the municipalities in the county did their studies, the population growth and that type of thing anticipated the 20 years as well. So that's the only kind of difference in what the statute says. But it just very briefly, it has to be reasonably compact yet sufficiently large to accommodate this projected growth, residential and non-residential. It has to identify territory that's contiguous to the existing boundaries and territory that, and this is the legal jargon that most people hate lawyers for, but this is what it will be judged by. A reasonable and prudent person would project as the likely site of high-density commercial, industrial, and/or residential growth over those years based on historical experience, economic trends, population growth patterns, topographical characteristics, and that type of thing. It has to identify territory that the municipality is better able and prepared than other municipalities to efficiently and effectively provide urban services. And it has to reflect the municipality's duty to facilitate full development of resources within the current boundaries of the municipality and to manage and control urban expansion outside of those boundaries, taking into account the impact to agricultural lands, forests, recreational areas, and wildlife management areas. So it's important to remember, committee members, as you're discussing the map and the growth plan, that these are the standards by which the urban growth boundaries will be judged in the event it's ever challenged, or in the event that when it goes to LGPAC, if they're taking a look at to see if it's accomplishing what the statute says that it needs to accomplish. And again, this is going to be unpopular, but I'm a lawyer, so we say unpopular things. While it's important to take into consideration the property owner's desires, unfortunately, that's not what the statute says. So just keep that in mind, and I will hand the mic back over to the mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Greg, you're up next. You want the lights dim too?
Yes.
Okay. And here's the mic.
Thank you, Mayor. So what you will recall that it was on November 21st that this coordinating committee met last, and at that time it recommended approval of a growth plan with the maps and sent those out to the jurisdictions for action. What I'd like to do here is just summarize what those actions are, and then I want to kind of share with you or reshare with you, refresh your memory on some maps, just so that we can get caught up so that you can then have this discussion. So as you can see here, the cities of Brentwood, Fairview, and Franklin, and the town of Nolensville all ratified the plan as it was sent out. Thompson Station rejected the plan, and as you'll see here in just a minute, they did so and recommended an alternative map to be included with the plan. I'll show you that here in just a minute. The City of Spring Hill did the same thing, and that is rejected the map, rejected the plan, and is providing an alternative map for you to consider. And the county rejected it as well for a couple of reasons that I think the mayor will describe here in just a few minutes. So that's really what we have before you. So let me just walk you through some maps. I'm going to end up with a map that enlarges the bottom part of the county, the Thompson Station, Spring Hill, because that's really all the places where the changes were made. But I just want to kind of refresh your memory on this whole process. So this is the urban growth boundaries as they exist today, before you even started planning this, right? So if nothing changes, these are the growth boundaries that are in existence and will continue to be in existence. So that was our baseline. This is the map that was approved by the coordinating committee. So if you compare this map to what was in your first draft plan, it's changed a little bit because of what the coordinating committee did. And in particular, I don't know if this laser pointer works or not. Yeah. In particular, sorry. There we go. Maybe I won't use the laser pointer. I'll show you here in just a minute. This is the map that the coordinating committee approved. And then when each of the jurisdictions did their review, this is a map that reflects those jurisdiction actions. This is a map that you have before you today. So let me just kind of highlight a couple of things. I'm going to turn this off so I know it's a little bit hard to see here, but what we have done is shaded here what was added and what was recommended for approval. And then this is probably the map that you want to be looking at. This is the enlargement of the area. So you can see that what Spring Hill is recommending in their alternative map is this area, which is what was being proposed by them originally. And in addition, this area was added here. I'm assuming the Spring Hill representatives can explain that. And then Thompson Station, what you can see is it's a lot of little pieces, a half a dozen or so properties that were removed, a couple of properties that were added. And again, I'm assuming that the Thompson Station's committee representative can describe that. These are the only changes from what you saw previously. So none of the other jurisdictions recommended any changes. So this is the map that you have before you at this time. Are there any questions about that? And it's not my job to explain why or any of the rationale here. I'll let the representatives of the jurisdictions do that. I just wanted to get the information in front of you. So any questions, clarifying questions about that? Mayor?
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. So the next is, you've heard the overview. Yeah, you can. You've heard the overview from Greg of why the different jurisdictions either rejected or recommended changes. I'll start off by the county. The county rejected or voted no because we understood that Thompson Station was planning to make some changes. So the commission voted, County Commission voted to reject the growth plan to give them an opportunity to do so. So Yeah, but I want to give you an explanation on that. So we do need to get a motion to adopt the revised plan as presented to get it on the floor for discussion, keeping up with Robert's Rules of Order. Do I have a motion to get it on the floor?
I'll make a motion.
Who made that? Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trent. All right, now, it's on the floor. So the county, you saw by Greg that we rejected it because we knew Thompson Station. Now we'll move over to I'll just go in Thompson Station order here to explain your rejection and recommended changes from, you can just do that from your seat if you want, and we will get you a microphone.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. So what we did was with our map, we went back and readjusted what we had agreed to do as we've done throughout the process. We gave everyone a specific date that who wanted to be removed from the UGB, and that's exactly what we did. So we removed everyone from the map, and then that's when we presented this back to our board, or we presented this map that way. So that's what we're presenting to everyone today. And this map is pretty much based on the 5-year outlook with the interlocal agreement, which is imperative to this whole process. Within 5 years, we can come back and review different things. Situations could look in a different manner of what we're doing. But for now, this is what we want to propose. This works within what our parameters are going to be.
So would you explain these red areas that we've got drafted here?
Those are the areas that we're currently already in our UGB. Is that correct, Micah?
Whoops. Help me out. Other way, other way, other way. There we go. All right, these areas right here, the red areas, they are removed?
Yeah, they're the ones we removed.
Okay. So the brown shaded area is your area.
Brown shaded areas of the current town limits.
And the yellow or whatever the next color is, right here, those are your proposed changes.
That's the existing UGBs.
Okay. This area here,
Yes.
little green right here.
Those are right there.
Anything else?
There's a little bit of green on Harpeth Paintsville Road,
Right here,
south.
right there.
There was just a handful of parcels that were added right there at the property owner's request.
At the property owner's request. Okay. All right, before we go on to Spring Hill, let me see if there's any, can you all hear me in the back? Okay. Are there any questions in regards to Thompson Station's new proposed plan? No questions from the committee members. All right. And we'll move on to Spring Hill. Trent?
All right, thank you, Mayor Anderson. I want to thank the coordinating committee for allowing Spring Hill to bring back our plan. My goal for today is to give you guys clarity on what we're requesting and why that request complies with the state law that we're called to satisfy during this process. Spring Hill adopted our proposal for our urban growth boundary after over 2 years of public engagement where multiple town hall meetings were held for stakeholders to provide input. The city gave notice to every potentially affected landowner and updated information on our city's website prior to the adoption of our proposal. The Spring Hill Board of Mayor and Aldermen have revisited this map at least 4 times in concert with our duty under state law, including limiting the scope of our original proposal. And Spring Hill has given this process very thoughtful consideration. The map that Spring Hill brought you back in October was approved by the board then in an 8-to-1 vote. As you can see, this map is identical to the previous one, but it includes an additional parcel that was added at the request of the landowner. This map was approved by the Spring Hill board by a unanimous 9-0 vote, including Mayor Hageman's support. This committee is empowered by the state in Tennessee Code Annotated 6-58-104A2 to consider the following issue. Does the Spring Hill map comply with the requirements of a municipal urban growth boundary that are set out in TCA 6-58-106A? And Christy already read the statute out, so I won't bore you a second time of reading out the requirements of this section. Just would want to know, we do recognize that if the interlocal agreement is adopted, it would narrow the scope of the growth consideration to 5 years. And so, moving on, we've heard no opposition to the northwestern portion of our UGB as presented. Happy to answer any questions about that, but I'll focus my discussion on the eastern UGB requests, where we'll focus the analysis. I'll run through each of the subsections one by one and demonstrate how Spring Hill's plan fulfills each requirement as to the eastern portion. So first, identify territory that is reasonably compact yet sufficiently large to accommodate residential and non-residential growth projected to occur during the next 5 years. Our request is centralized to one compact area with well-defined boundaries adjacent to existing roadways that are within the city's limits or within our existing urban growth boundary. Then moreover, the proposed urban growth boundary is more compact than multiple other proposed UGBs that seem to meet this requirement as determined by this committee. Secondly, identify territory that is contiguous to the existing boundaries of the municipality. Our request is bounded by city limits or existing urban growth boundaries of the city. Our proposed boundary clearly meets this test. Third, identify territory that a reasonable and prudent person would project as the likely site of high-density commercial, industrial, and/or residential growth over the next 5 years. First and foremost, the exit onto 65, the Buckner interchange, will be completed within the next 30 to 45 days. And the city has already fielded many calls about the potential for economic development in this area on multiple parcels. Secondly, every interstate exit from Nashville to Franklin has seen commercial development and economic development come through. This area is the next undeveloped location with direct interstate access. In fact, back in December, the Nashville Business Journal rated development on this exit as the largest development project in the Nashville area. So to put that in context, saying this area is unlikely to see development would be like saying that the Old Hickory Boulevard corridor off Exit 74 in Brentwood or the Carruthers corridor in Franklin would be unlikely places for growth if they were currently undeveloped. Simply, the horses left the barn in regards to growth coming to this area. It will develop in the next few years with the investment of infrastructure into the interchange. It's not a matter of if growth will happen, it's simply a matter of how growth occurs at this point. Fourth, identify territory in which the municipality is better able and prepared than other municipalities to efficiently and effectively provide urban services. Spring Hill has proactively undertaken the following planning efforts in anticipation of serving this area. One, the city has begun to design the next steps to provide an interceptor line and sewer services to serve this area as part of our current system development plan for our utilities. Two, there is water service readily available to this area from both the north and the south. And I know that we've heard conversation about the Duck River during today's session. We recognize this crucial need, and Spring Hill is actively working with TDEC on an advanced purification project and expect pilot approval this year with a reservoir component that would solve water supply issues in Spring Hill for multiple generations and reduce our reliance on the Duck River. So we see the need for that as well. Third, the roadway network development in this area is accounted for in Spring Hill's major thoroughfare plan, and conceptual design on a north-south arterial road in this area is expected to be funded in the upcoming year's budget cycle. Fourth, this area was included in the Spring Hill Rising 2040 plan in collaboration with planning staff when that project was completed back in the mid-2010s. Fifth, Spring Hill is ready to serve this area with both police and fire services. The city will have invested close to $50 million in a new police station and fire station that will both come online in the next 18 to 24 months. These facilities will allow us to effectively serve this area. And all of these investments, they would relieve county services from being expended in this area. It simply should not be a surprise to anyone that Spring Hill has been planning this direction, as we have taken step after step to be able to serve this area, not just in the mid to long term, but in the near term. And then fifth, reflect the municipality's duty to facilitate full development of resources within the current boundaries of the municipality and to manage and control urban expansions outside of such boundaries. Spring Hill's planning process as it stands today evaluates infrastructure impact, water and sewer capacity impact, and impact to other resources and balances that impact with the impact of any given development within our current boundaries. Simply put, if Spring Hill is not the one directing growth in this area, no other entity will be. As we demonstrated earlier, growth is coming to this area, and Spring Hill is in the best position to manage and control that expansion outside of the current boundaries. Now, I do want to address two questions that I know will be coming as soon as I wrap up. First, why the additional parcel? That's because this parcel fits within the parameters of the statute, as we've talked about, and this landowner specifically requested inclusion into Spring Hill's UGB. And just for context, we've had additional landowners also request, but we did not include them because they came after the certain point that we resubmitted the map. Secondly, I want to answer probably the most popular question in the room right now. If property owners don't want to be in the urban growth boundary, why can't we just leave them out? Well, there are three things that I would say. First, as someone, I was born and raised in Williamson County. I guess I've gotten used to the fact that one constant in our community is change. The building where previous coordinated committee meetings occurred sits on the site where I went to middle school and where my mother went to high school at Battleground Academy. That street that I grew up on in Red Wing Farms is part of Franklin's UGB request this time around because it used to be part of the sleepy south side of Franklin, now known as Berry Farms. And so the changes that we are used to have been thoughtfully planned out to make our community into a place that's consistently rated as one of the best places in America to live, work, and raise a family. Secondly, if this had to do with annexation of your property into a city or imposing an additional duty, I would be wearing a yellow shirt too today. Inclusion into UGB simply allows the property owner to opt into annexation and decides which jurisdiction that property would be annexed to should the property owner ever want to be part of a municipality. We aren't making annexation decisions because cities cannot annex without the property owner's consent. And then third, state law outlines the coordinating committee's duty today. It is to evaluate the proposals in light of the standards that the state legislature sets out for us. Excluding parcels solely on the basis of a request is arbitrary and capricious, as it undercuts the purpose of this process altogether. Moreover, the law provides clear processes outlined in 6-58-105 if a property owner believes that they have been improperly included. And so I'll wrap up by saying this. Spring Hill has conducted a thoughtful evaluation of our statutory duties, and we've fulfilled our obligation by producing a map that we believe is fair, comports with the requirements outlined in the statute, and is judicially defensible. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Thank you. There was a lot of information. Questions from the committee members towards the Spring Hill, and we'll move the mic around if you'll raise your hand if you have questions. Judy?
This is for Christy. Christy, is it not correct if you're in the UGB, they can do eminent domain and run a road through your property? Is that correct?
Eminent domain is generally only allowed on the property when it's been annexed, so it would have to be within the city limits before the city would exercise their eminent domain authority for any infrastructure. If it's outside of the city limits, the county obviously could exercise its eminent domain authority for roads or parks or whatever. So with the UGB, they're still county residents until they're annexed.
Follow up. I had another hand over here, I think. Mr. Morton?
I'm trying to make sure that I'm wording this correctly because I didn't think about this until we just learned about a private covenant, a land trust that owns a significant portion of area. And so my question, I guess, is twofold. What consideration was given to private covenants, and what effect does that have on a city's ability to make that a likely site of high density commercial? I guess it depends on the land trust, but the ones that I have seen, and I would venture to guess that this particular one prohibits those. So what effect do private covenants have on Spring Hill's decision? Were they considered, and what effect will it have on their planning?
I'm happy to get any feedback from our legal counsel as well. I don't believe that we did title searches on every property in the UGB to see if there was a land trust or not. I think I would defer to potentially, yeah.
We have many land trusts already, not many, several land trusts already in the city limits of Spring Hill. Being in a land trust obviously changes the way the land can be used, but this doesn't impact that at all. They can choose forever not to be annexed because it will be their choice. So whether it's in the UGB or not will not ultimately change the way it could or could not be developed. That's up to the land trust documents itself. So I don't think being in a land trust has anything to do with it. It will forever remain. If you look at Spring Hill, you will see light colors within the city limits, surrounded by the city limits. We call those donuts. We have several of those. And so let's assume that we did annex, and I'm not saying we will, I'm just saying perhaps someday I would anticipate that farm or that land would be a donut forever, because there would be no reason for them to want to be annexed, and therefore they would never concur with that, and it would keep going.
Chaz, I've looked, is it Chaz that had the question? No.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Patrick, City Attorney for Spring Hill. I've looked into this issue in the past, and I think Ms. Caskey is correct. I think what would happen is if it was included in the UGB, I don't think that violates the land trust documents. I think the property owner could still have it annexed if it would be their decision to seek annexation, and it could be annexed. Now, the covenants that run with the property would prohibit development in whatever the land trust it says itself. But I don't think the fact that it's subject to those covenants affects this process whatsoever.
Other questions? Mayor? Sure.
So the one question I have, sorry, y'all need to get this taller, man. So I'm going to ask a couple questions. So before this process all started, I took office December of 2022. I was pulled into the UGB conversation. There was some issues with our current UGB that we had then. So are you aware of the conversation that were had between us, our legal staff, and your legal team?
I'm not sure. No.
Okay. The agreement that was made was you would not take any land east of 431 and south of Buckner unless there was a conversation. There was no conversation. It's just there. So I need an explanation of why that's there, besides the landowner wanted to be in there. There's a lot of requests. Maybe not to be in there, maybe to be removed, maybe to be whatever. But there was no conversation with me. So tell me why that's there.
Simply,
Let's hold our applause. We're trying to keep this done professionally the best we can. I know it's an emotional issue, but let's let the question and the communication, the dialogue go back and forth. Trent?
Yeah, simply, we received a request from the landowner. I was not alerted by staff that those conversations had occurred. Obviously, if that is something that we've committed to, then we need to continue those conversations. But I think that's part of the reason why we're coming back for review in front of this.
I respect that. I respect the owner wanting to come in the land. What I take issue with, there was no communication with me. We worked long and hard on this process. I mean, several folks in this room tell you I was the punching bag for a while. But we listened and we did what we needed to. What I asked for is respectfully remove that because there was no conversation with me. Within the interlocal agreement, there is a clause that would allow you, as long as that's going to be commercial, we can reconvene this committee and have a conversation that makes it that way. If I'm understanding that correctly, my interlocal. Is that correct? Okay. That's my ask. Because I can tell you right now, if that stays in there, I'll have no trust in what we are trying to work through. What I've tried to do in the past year and a half to re-engage the two municipalities, I'm going to have a hard time. I don't forget things. So I respectfully ask you to remove that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other All right, who wants to do this? Here's your corner.
Just that piece. Just that piece?
That's the piece we're talking about, Mayor?
The whole thing. Show me where you're. Sorry.
Might give him the mic so he can go up there.
My apologies. This whole thing. So our agreement was east of 431, south of Buckner.
It's the original piece that was pointed out.
Sorry. Yeah.
The peninsula. Yes.
Right here. Sorry. So it's right here. The lights are blinding. Sorry.
Trent?
Yeah, if that gets us to yes, we understand. We're happy to request removal of that parcel if that gets us to a request, a yes on the request today.
So we're talking about this area right here?
That one parcel right there on the east side of 431.
This area? Yes. Correct. Okay. Other questions? Jason?
We're down to one mic.
I have a question surrounding the 20 years projection in the statute. And I'm thinking about June Lake's development schedule as a prompt. As I understand it, June Lake is projected to have a 20-year build out or somewhere around there. If I'm mistaken about that based on the work we've done, let me know. Can you all talk to us about what development you project in this area in the next 20 years?
Yeah, great question. June Lake, I believe, is developing over the next 15 years. And so if you look on the new interchange, basically mapping the top of the urban growth boundary request there is the new east-west collector that's coming from the interstate exit. And so the reason that we're requesting the full amount or the full area over there is because we don't know where development will necessarily pop up in that area. And so we think it's reasonable that it could pop up within the next 5 years.
That answer your question,
The second thing is we also believe that development on this side of 65 is likely to be more commercial in nature than residential. So if we're thinking like potentially impact to schools, we think it's more likely that it's commercial in nature.
Answer your question, Jason. Other questions? So did I hear correctly, you are
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the current map to remove the parcel east of 431 from Spring Hill's urban growth boundary.
Right here. So we have a motion on the, his motion is to do this.
The singular parcel east of 431, yes.
Do I have a second on that motion? Second by Ms. Herbert for this area, all area included. Questions on the motion? Mayor, you,
I'd like to amend the motion.
hold on just a moment, please. Mayor, you follow the main motion or amendment of the WID? All right, okay. Mayor Gorman?
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to remove all of the green hatched area east of Interstate 65. as shown on the map.
This area here.
So this stays included, but all of this comes out.
All right, we have a second on the amended motion. Trent?
Can I just ask Mayor Gorman, what's the legal basis for your request for that motion?
I need to confer with council, and I'm not prepared to do that right now. My motion is on the floor as stands. Can you tell me what your role is with
Let's get the microphone over there too. Let's get it to Mayor Gorman.
Can you help me understand your role with Spring Hill, please, Trent? Are you an elected official or? Okay, and the mayor is not here? Okay.
The BOMA passed a resolution. He's the appointed member to be here for the city of Spring Hill. That's his designation.
Are there other questions? Are there other questions on the amendment? So the amendment offered by Mayor Gorman is to include this whole big area, and we have a proper second. So all of you know Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary procedure. We'll have to vote on the amendment before we can make the motion to just include this area here. Are there questions? We're voting on Mayor Gorman's motion, amendment to the motion. Eric?
I still haven't heard an explanation for the motion. I'd like to understand your.
The question?
Just the folks making the motion, explain your rationale for removing.
Motion is legitimate and on the floor as proposed.
Do you want to articulate why? Okay.
Are there other questions? So are you ready to vote on the amendment? We'll do this by a show of hands of the people that can vote here on the front four tables. Front. Yeah, well, there may be somebody on the ones that can vote will be here in the main area. Those in favor, Mike, let me borrow your mic. Those in favor, let me get over here. You'd think the county could afford some batteries. All right. Those in favor of the amendment as being offered by Mayor Gorman to include this area, please show.
To include it to be removed.
To be removed, that's correct. Yeah. This area to be removed, please show by a show of hands. 1, 2. All right, let's control it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed to the amendment? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The amendment fails. We're back to the main motion. Back to the amendment. For this area here, we have a proper motion and second. Correct, Christie? Yes. Ready to vote on that?
To remove that.
To remove that. All in favor of the area to be removed here and an amendment, signify by raising your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And those opposed? Abstain? Abstain? So we have it, this area will be removed. This one is still left in for the time being. We have, hold on just a minute. We have two people that abstained, is that correct? Mayor? Okay. Mayor in the back.
I would like to make a recommendation. If you'll remove that section, we can come back in 5 years and reevaluate that. I think that gets you to an offering that will work. I think if that land is the green that we just voted, as not the little peninsula, the big area. Yeah. Kim.
Yeah, the only, this body has voted on that one, Mayor.
We haven't voted on it.
I haven't voted on the main motion, but we have voted on that already. So you can,
I'll amend, let me amend the motion. Can I do that?
so long as we don't go back to the main motion, you
All right.
can.
I would like to amend that we remove the bigger parcel of that property in hopes that we can come back with an agreement for Spring Hill within the interlocal agreement within the 5 years.
Well, I think under parliamentary procedures, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, I'm gonna change you, you're my parliamentary guy. Once you have voted on an amendment, you'll have to get that mic, this one's batteries don't work.
Unless there was a motion to reconsider the vote that was defeated, one of those voted that not to delete that. You'd have to get a motion from someone to reconsider that vote. That would have to be a second. You would then vote on whether to reconsider. If you passed a motion to reconsider, you could then vote again on that parcel, but you would have to go through that procedure to get it back on the floor.
So, there was only two people that voted. No, there was more than, there was four. Four on the big section. So the others, if there's someone on the winning side wants to bring that back up for reconsideration, they could do that.
I would like to bring that up for reconsideration.
I need a second on the reconsideration of that. We have a second. You can't do it. Has to come off the winning side. Chaz, you voted on the winning side?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion to reconsider, a second to reconsider. That's all you're voting on right now. If you don't want to reconsider this, vote no. If you want to reconsider it, vote up, yes. We can certainly hear that justification. I will take the chairman's role on this, give him the mic, and why are you willing? They want to know why you're wanting this to be reconsidered.
Absolutely. I'd like to try and equitably work on a situation where we can resolve this to try and come to a solution that works for what I think will be a winning strategy for us in the county.
Do I need to call for a recess for you and Spring Hill to get together? No? All right, you get your answer on that, Mayor? The motion on the floor is to reconsider. Any other questions? Jason?
It's a follow-up to my earlier question now in the context of 5 years. What development do you project in the next 5 years, given the mayor's motion in this area?
two things. One, removing this entire section would essentially leave Spring Hill with no urban growth boundary, which we believe in this process is unreasonable at that point.
Hold your
Secondly-
remarks, please.
Secondly, kind of goes back to what I said earlier, Mr. Golden. The east-west connector of that at the top of the urban growth boundary from the interstate project really opens up the potential for development kind of throughout that parcel. And so we believe that it is reasonable that that development could happen basically at any part of that section, obviously subject to the request of the landowner. But we have had multiple conversations both along 65 and then throughout for potential development going through in the next 5 years.
All right, the motion on the floor is to reconsider. Legal counsel advised me of that. It's not to describe what you're going to do down the road. It is strictly voting to reconsider. Ready to vote? All in favor of wanting to reconsider, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those that are opposed to reconsidering, please raise your hand. How many did I get that last one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's tied. Motion fails. All right, we're moving on. It cannot be reconsidered at this time. It can be reconsidered during the processes at some other date. What else? We're back to the main motion now. The main motion is to accept the main motion is to accept the recommendations by both Spring Hill and Thompson Station, correct? Without that, as amended. Who said that? Thank you, Eric. You directing traffic up here, you forget about all that. All right, ready to vote on the main motion, not including that. Any questions? Judy?
You're putting Thompson Station and Spring Hill together to vote on, or are we voting on them separately?
Whole thing. We're to that point now. Other questions? Yes, Eric?
So this is really probably for our attorney. Help me understand, we hear the property rights discussion a lot around properties in and outside of the UGB. Someone who's in a proposed UGB, say they're added, how do their property rights differ compared to somebody's property rights that remains out of a UGB? What's their ability to develop, to annex, to plan versus someone who's in the UGB? I'm trying to think about if I'm a property owner and I want to secure the broadest interpretation of my property rights. Am I better in the UGB or am I better outside, or how is it different? Or just help me understand that, because I think that gets thrown around a lot about this is a property rights issue. At the end of the day, no one annexes without their consent. But there are ramifications for what we do in terms of planning and just anticipating what might happen in an area so that we think ahead of some of the problems that people reference related to growth. So help me understand that if you can.
Okay, I'll do the best I can, and I'm gonna eyeball all of your attorneys so y'all can jump in if I go off the rails a little bit. All right, so property rights. Let's just talk about that. If you're in the UGB, you are only in the UGB. Your land is still developable under county zoning and county regulations until such time as it is annexed. The current urban growth boundaries are in a county zoning district called MGA, and it's either a 1 unit per acre district or a 5 unit per acre district. Only if this growth plan is ever amended would the county have an opportunity or a reason to amend the county zoning to reflect these new UGBs in the municipal growth areas. The other thing that we've discussed significantly and over time is that when we did this the first time, it made sense to have a one-size-fits-all rule for zoning and planning in those UGBs for the county. As this county has changed and grown and become more sophisticated, it may make more sense that the interim development policies for Franklin's UGB might be different than for Nolensville's UGB. And so I would anticipate, and I believe Mike would anticipate, and the mayor, that the cities and the county would work with the county to determine what those interim policies should be. So what that means is how that property would be developed, what you can do on it, what the density would be, whether it be residential or non-residential, while it's still in the county until such time as it becomes part of the city. When it is annexed and the city takes property in, the city then assigns a zoning district from the city to that land in the city's zoning regulations and in the city's subdivision regulations. And so it's in the county until such time as it is annexed. And while I don't represent clients who can annex, because counties don't annex, I will tell you it's extremely difficult to annex property without the property owner's permission. It's very rare and it's very difficult. I understand that. I said it's extremely difficult. So, to answer your question, the property rights for people in the city and the property rights for people in the county are the same. It's just what they can and cannot do with the property is determined by the county's rules and regulations versus the city's. Does that help?
I'm really looking more for the UGB designation. I know, think of it, county resident, county property owner versus county property owner. One's in the UGB, one's not.
Right.
Their ability to make decisions for their property, their ability to choose whether to annex or not, how is that different?
It's not different while it's in the UGB. While it's in the UGB, it is still county property under planning and zoning rules and regulations. It's not subject to city taxes. It's not generally available for city services.
Let me say it a different way. If I'm outside, if say I'm in one of these areas that there's discussion of whether to remove it or not, and we remove it, and I later decide, oh, I want to annex in, or I want to, I've changed that. Have I lost something? Because I've been removed from the UGB in terms of my ability to get in later.
That depends on the interlocal. If the interlocal agreement is approved and you're outside of the UGB, then you cannot be annexed if you're outside of the UGB per the terms of the interlocal unless the UGB is expanded to take you in. And there is a process in the interlocal agreement that would anticipate that. Does that help? I'm sorry, I don't mean to be dancing around an answer. I'm just.
Yeah, that's right. I think he's specifically asking about the Attorney General opinion that addresses that issue.
The Attorney General opinion that addresses that issue.
And I believe Mr. Linville has a portion of it that's appropriate.
Well, I've read about 4,000 Attorney General opinions, and so I'll let you talk about that.
Patrick addressed it.
Yeah, let Patrick handle it.
Eric, I think you're asking about the Attorney General opinion dated August 22nd, 2000. This is from the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, which specifically asks what options are available to residents of a county who are dissatisfied with the inclusion of their property within the UGB under a growth plan ratified by all cities in the county. That's your question, isn't it?
That's one version of it. Yeah,
okay. So I think the way the AG answered that is he said, residents of a county or owners of property within the county may challenge the growth plan in an action under 10 Code Ann 658-105. Under that statute, petitioners have the burden by proving by preponderance of the evidence that the UGB, planned growth area and or rural areas are invalid because the adoption or approval thereof was granted in an arbitrary, capricious, or illegal or other manner characterized by abuse of official discretion. And so I think that's the answer, that they have an option if they don't like it, but the standard to prove is going to be high. They're going to have to prove that it was arbitrary and capricious. Frankly, if I believe that the inverse is also true, that if the citizens were just listened to and this board does what the yellow shirts want, I think that would be arbitrary and capricious too, which was why I think you were asking Mayor Gorman what was the legal reasoning for removing it, because there must be one, otherwise it's arbitrary and capricious by definition, in my opinion.
Other questions on the main motion with the amendment? Mayor?
Can you go back to the broader map and show everyone so that Victor can review ours for a second?
This one?
Yes, thank you.
Come on up, Victor. Is it about the motion?
It is about the overall motion.
Okay.
With regard to Spring Hills boundaries.
All right, come on.
I'm sorry, not Spring Hills.
I was gonna say,
Nolan's-
I knew.
My bad.
I thought maybe you'd changed.
Sorry. Been a long day already. So when Nolansville adopted the urban growth boundary, we had originally proposed a interim 5-year plan and then said, okay, there's a much broader one that we wanted to look at as well that would be a longer term, a longer vision. At that point, we were pretty encouraged that, hey, this was 2 years ago and we thought this process would move along as we all anticipated it would move along pretty quickly. When it came down to adopting the interlocal agreement, Nolansville had expressed some issues with the interlocal. One particular issue that we just felt like would end up creating the opportunity for donut holes on the edge of our urban growth boundary or the edge of our city limits. And so I want to just take a look at that, what is being proposed on the map, to make sure that it covers the area that we were interested in, even in the longer term period. And for the most part, it is call it our 5-year plan. It's not the 10 or 15-year plan that we had talked about. That expanded a little bit larger footprint. We had reached out to all of our people, even in that 15, 20-year plan, didn't get any opposition after we had met with them. We want to be on board with the interlocal agreement. We support it. We're just concerned that in its fashion with the areas that we've got right now in that urban growth boundary, there's a potential for donut holes to exist for us.
So I'm gonna turn to Jeff on this, another legal opinion. If, in the event all of this work we're doing goes down the road and the lawyers have to work all this interlocal out, we have said all along, somewhere around the 5-year mark, I realize it's taken us a little bit longer to get here than what we thought. But at the end of the 5-year period, if no new 5-year agreement is reached to get to that, how will that work?
For which one? For the map or the interlocal?
For the interlocal.
The interlocal has a 5-year term. There are some qualifications that could change that slightly, but none of that relates to our action. That would be based on legislation at the Tennessee level. Otherwise, it's a 5-year agreement. It would either have to be extended by the municipalities to continue in effect, or it would stop at that point. It would expire. Now, as part of that, you have a continuing advisory committee and an anticipation that you will have another growth plan in 5 years as part of that interlocal. But if you don't meet those conditions and it expires, then you will go back to existing law or the law at the time that it expires as to annexation outside the UGB, and some of the other factors. I'm not thinking of what the other major ones would be. That would be the biggest one, though.
Does that answer your question?
Partly, because there is the clause that says if the state does away with UGBs, then the interlocal
Goes on for 5 years.
Goes on for an additional 5 years.
From that time of that,
So.
that goes away. So you could,
10 years.
if they did away with the UGB law in 4 years, you could have 9 years on the agreement.
And that's the piece that concerns us with the limited portion that we have put in our UGB. My question is it, we had notified all those citizens in the larger portion, our 15 to 20 year plan, if you would, or 10 to 20 year plan. Do we need to, it's more prudent for us at this time to ask the map be amended to include that larger option, since we could be 10 years before we get to even have this
If it would take care of your concerns with the donut hole, including it in the 10-year now without opposition from those residents, would certainly alleviate the concern.
I would think that would be prudent for Nolensville to do. I'll leave that to our mayor.
You don't have a map ready to include today.
Well, we don't have a map to put up here today. It's one that we have submitted. Obviously, we weren't.
Well, I'll leave that part to Christie.
Well, I think it would be, unless she can find it, we have stopped others from doing what you're doing just by about. And I don't think that would be good public policy for us unless you can identify those parcels. But it's only pertaining to Nolensville. Is it touching any of Brentwood?
No, it is not.
Is it, or Franklin?
Brent Schultz, where are you? Can you bring the map? Can you bring the map? I don't have.
I hate, is there another way to amend that?
Well, you're talking with Mike. I think that there is, Jeff, this is correct, Christie, there is the mandate that even if the plan is extended, the interlocal extended 10 years, the plan is reviewed in 5 years.
Yes.
I think that will alleviate.
Okay. Counselor, you follow along, or you? All right. So Nolensville is comfortable.
I am, the mayor will have to speak to us, but I'm comfortable.
Okay. Any other questions before we vote on the main motion and the amendment? It went away. My little spot. We ready to vote on the full plan with the changes that have been made here today? This is the only area that really changed here at the Ag Center. There were some other changes that were presented to the body. Ready? Any other questions? All in favor, please raise your hand. Of the plan as amended, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Plan passes. Mike? All finished here? So at this point, we will have to go back. Let's see, Thompson Station will have to take a vote from their body, correct?
We'll all have to. We have to send it.
Everything has to go back out again, all right. All cities have to do that again. Any other, and the county. Christie, what else do we need to do? Any housekeeping?
That's plenty.
That's plenty?
We'll have to send out we'll put together the revised map and send out a transmittal memo like we did the last time, so you'll know the time frame within which you have to take action before it's auto-approved.
Anything else for the good of the cause? I'll entertain the final motion. Thank you.